Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Dr. Olayemi Cardoso, in his preliminary remarks during the confirmation screening at the Senate last Tuesday, outlined high-level proposals to address reformation challenges in the country, as well as the roles of a refocused central bank in supporting the economic agenda of the President Bola Tinubu administration. Senators also asked questions bordering on the country's key macroeconomic indicators and how the new leadership of the Apex Bank intends to handle those, to which answers were provided. Today on the program, we'll be speaking with an economist on critical areas of focus that could make the most economic impact. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Oh, I see. Just hold on in that case. Let me call out my PIN. It is 4-1...
Uncle, please stop.
Stop what?
You're giving someone else your personal identification number PIN?
Not someone else. It's from my bank.
Please hang up, Uncle. That's a fraudster.
That's not true. But they call out my full name. I am sure this is from my bank.
Uncle, no bank is ever going to call you to ask for your personal identification number PIN, your mobile banking password, or your card verification code, CVC.
But it sounded so genuine.
Yes, hackers and fraudsters always sound genuine. But please, Uncle, don't fall for their bait. Don't respond to any phony emails, text message, SMS, and don't click on any link you're not sure of.
Even if they call your date of birth or your BVN, don't give them your security details.
If you suspect any issue with your account, please go to your bank.
Oh, I see.
This message is from the Central Bank of Nigeria.
The benchmark interest rate at the last MPC meeting was raised to 18.75%. Year-on-year, all-item inflation rate in August was put at 25.8%, and exchange rate of the naira to the dollar on the INE window and the parallel market has a variation of up to 250 naira. Nigerians are hopeful that the new management of the Central Bank of Nigeria, under the leadership of the governor, Dr. Olayemi Cardoso, will come up with policies that will positively turn Nigeria's economy around for the better. But what should be topmost on the list? Let's have the views of one of Nigeria's leading economists and the Director, Chief Executive Officer, Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Thank you very much for coming on the program today, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, managed flow forex regime is a way of managing currency crisis. Now, the managed float currency regime was introduced about 3 months ago, but the gap between the official exchange rate and the parallel market is still wide. What do you think is responsible for that? Would you say it is too early to evaluate the performance of the new forex regime? Why is the gap still wide, and what can be done about it?
Well, to manage the exchange rates sustainably within the framework of the managed floating framework requires some key fundamentals, especially on the supply side. Now, when the policy was introduced, it was based on a number of assumptions. And one of the key assumptions was that we will have some measure of steady supply from the Central Bank of Nigeria, based on what was assumed to be the capacity of the Central Bank to intervene in the market. But as it was later revealed, that capacity was not as robust as we expected. I'm talking about the status of the reserves now. You know, when the CBN financial reports were published and the players in the economy began to analyze those reports, it became clear that the reserves had been significantly encumbered. So that fueled a lot of speculative pressure on the foreign exchange market. So the divergence that we saw was largely as a result of the intense speculative pressure on the foreign exchange market. And until we're able to restore confidence in the capacity to regularly and sustainably intervene in the market, especially by the CBN, that confidence challenge will remain there. So what needs to happen is to, take steps which the new CBN governor has stated. Take steps to restore that confidence. And one of the key steps that he has proposed to undertake was to clear the backlog of outstanding maturing obligations in the foreign exchange markets, which I'm sure by now he has started to do. So the moment we're able to clear that significantly, confidence will begin to return. And the speculative pressure on the foreign exchange market will begin to be, vitiated. So that is one. The second very important thing is that it is very important that we'll avoid suppression of the market. And what I mean by that is that as much as possible, we should still allow the market to express itself. It may not be through the in window because of some political economy issues, but we should have either the interbank market or an autonomous window within the banking system where the currency can freely trade, both the foreign and the local currency, at a market rate without any encumbrances. That is very important. So we can have that dual framework in the meantime until we're able to stabilize the supply conditions in the in window. I say this because if we continue to insist that the in window rate should apply to all the inflows that are coming into the economy, including remittances, that will be creating an obstruction to those inflows. And we begin to see a lot of those transactions either going to the parallel market or happening under the table or being deflected into some other jurisdictions, which we don't want. So those are the near-term measures that I think needs to take place. In terms of the medium to long-term measures, we need to look at the fundamentals on the supply side and the fundamentals on the demand side. On the supply side, the government is doing a lot already to boost our exports production, particularly of crude oil. We are able to make significant progress there. That will help, especially now that we have very high oil price. So if we're able to ramp up the output, that will have a significant impact. Then there are also initiatives to encourage non-oil exports. Although that is still, not too significant in terms of value, but it also adds some value to the process. And also to create a framework to ease the inflow of remittances, whether diaspora remittances from the oil companies, from the embassies, from MDAs, and all of that. We should, encourage a lot more of those remittances by removing all barriers to those inflows.
What are those barriers?
No, barriers, first, it could be documentation barriers, or more importantly, it could be pricing barriers. Because if you are imposing an exchange rate on them, and you don't allow the market to express itself, that will be a major barrier. So that we need to remove. Then on the demand side, because when we talk about FX rates, it's both a supply issue and also a demand issue. On the demand side, we need to accelerate the process of import substitution. And the starting point is to ensure that we're able to refine petroleum products domestically. Because the FX demand for importation of petroleum products is perhaps the biggest component of pressure on the foreign exchange market. So if we're able to fast track that, either through the private sector players who are have invested in refineries or through the government-owned refineries or both, we're able to accelerate the process. That will help in the area of import substitution. Then, of course, our manufacturing sector too and the players in the economy generally should begin to refocus their business model to ensure that we source a lot more things domestically in order to reduce the pressure of demand on forex. Of course, that will be a medium to long term things. Then we should invest a lot more in what I call upstream industries. These are basic industries like iron and steel, like our petrochemicals, like our paper mills, like aluminum smelter. All those upstream industries will help to reduce the demand for forex by our manufacturing sector. So these are things that needs to be done both on the supply side and on the demand side. Yeah.
Will all the factors that you have mentioned automatically take care of the downward slide that we are witnessing, the downward slide of the naira? Will it firm up the naira, or are there other factors responsible for that? Because you kept mentioning letting the market express itself. If that is allowed to happen, will the naira not keep sliding? Or once all those factors have been put in place, will it automatically improve the position of the naira against other foreign currencies?
Well, the thing is that first we must come to the realization that there is no quick fix in this matter, because we are dealing with some fundamental issues on the supply side and on the demand side. So it will take time. Now, if some of these measures that I've outlined are undertaken, okay, of course it will help. We can still maintain the managed float that we have in the earn-in window, so that we don't also create a perception that the government is deliberately devaluing the naira even more. But in order to checkmate all the activities that are taking place in the parallel market, it is better to have an official window where the market can properly express itself. So my proposition is that we should have that dual window as a transitional thing, so that inflows that are coming in will not be impeded. So that is very important. Of course, it cannot get worse than what has happened already in the parallel market. It can only get better if we now officially, create the window either in the interbank market or in whatever autonomous window to allow these inflows to come in without any major inhibition.
Moving on now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has a new leadership. We have a new governor and 4 new deputy governors. What do you think are the top 3 things in the economy, in the financial space, that should top their agenda as they get down to the business of monetary policy?
First, and the CBN governor had mentioned some of these things during the screening. First is to ensure quality corporate governance, because we need the Apex Bank to command credibility, to command trust. And you can only build credibility and trust if there is high level of corporate governance. You manage the regulatory space in a way that there is no discrimination, in a way that allows for level playing field, in a manner that the policy formulation processes are very transparent, and in a manner that there is full disclosure of the activities of the bank. So corporate governance is number 1. And related to that is how transparently we manage the process, like the foreign exchange market and all of that. Secondly, is the issue of coordination between the monetary policy and the fiscal policy, and some other key agencies of government. This is without prejudice to the independence of the Central Bank of Nigeria. But because all these agencies are working towards the same goal of ensuring a stronger economy, there's a lot of sense, a lot of wisdom in working together, in coordinating their activities to achieve that common objective. So we not like to see the kind of territorial mindset that we have seen in the past, where everybody was fixated about protecting his own territory, his or her own territory. So coordination is very, very important. Then, of course, we need to look at how we can also deepen the financial system. If you look at the data, credit to private sector as a percentage of GDP in Nigeria is just as at 2022 was just about 20%. The sub-Saharan average is close to 30%. The global average is about 145%. The implication of that is that the financial system is not sufficiently supporting the private sector. That means that the depth of financial intermediation is still very, very shallow. And the purpose of banking is financial intermediation. The primary purpose of banking is financial intermediation, which is mobilizing resources from the surplus end of the economy to the deficit end of the economy. We are not doing that enough. So it has to be one of the things that the new CBN management should look at how they can improve upon, so that we see much more synergy, much more linkage between the banking system, the financial system, and the business community, especially the small businesses. Because as we speak, going by one recent report by PwC, financing gap in the SME space is about 600 billion naira annually. That is why you see the SMEs, being vulnerable to all sorts of loan sharks, all sorts of schemes, from whom, they pay very prohibitive interest rates because of their desperation for credit. Also, it's also important that we look at the issue of the maturing structure of funds, particularly the tenor of funds in the financial system. If you look at our banking system today, the total structure of funds is such that close to 90% of funds in the financial system are less than 1 year tenor. And from the report of the NDIC, the negative mismatch between the deposits and the lending, negative mismatch in terms of tenor, in 2021, which was the latest figure I had, was over 40 trillion naira. In other words, you have a banking system that was lending short-term funds for long-term purposes, which could also pose a risk to the stability of the banking system. So we should come to a point where we have more funds in the system that can support economic development. If you have short-term funds of, 80%, where the fund in the system is almost 80% less than 1 year tenor, that cannot fund any long-term project. It cannot fund agriculture. It cannot fund manufacturing. It cannot fund real estate. It cannot fund mining. It cannot fund even infrastructure. Because you need long-term funds to be able to support the economy. Apart from the few development finance funds, these things are not in existence in the normal banking system. When you go abroad, for instance, people take loans, mortgage loans. They take loans to buy vehicles, which they pay over 5 years, over 10 years, over 20 years.
Consumer loans.
Consumer loans. That cannot happen here. You cannot take a mortgage of 10 years, 15 years at 20% interest rate, at 25%. How are you going to pay it back? Even to buy a vehicle, you can't take it at this current interest rate. So these are some of the impediments to the connection between the financial system and the private sector and even the citizens of the country. Then we also need to look at the spread between deposit rates and lending rates. That's interest rate spread. The spread in Nigeria is one of the highest globally. We have a spread of over 20%. Sub-Saharan average is about 10%. In Europe, it's just about 3%. Global average is about close to 6%. So when you have this kind of spread between the deposit rates and the lending rates, it shows that something is fundamentally wrong within the banking system and within the macroeconomic environment. That is also an issue of concern, so that we can get the banking system to be more supportive, to be a catalyst for economic development, because that is the whole essence. It's not about how much profit they are declaring. It's about how much value they are bringing to the economy. Because you cannot have a situation where non-interest income is accounting for over 40% of their income. That means most of their activities are actually in the areas outside of lending.
Which is the primary role of
which is supposed to be the primary role of banking.
Okay.
So these are fundamental lapses that we'll expect the new management of the CBN to begin to also address.
Oh, I see. Just hold on. In that case, let me call out my PIN. It is 41.
Uncle, please stop.
Stop what?
You're giving someone else your personal identification number PIN?
Not someone else. It's from my bank.
Please hang up, Uncle. That's a fraudster.
That's not true. But they call out my full name. I am sure this is from my bank.
Uncle, no bank is ever going to call you to ask for your personal identification number PIN, your mobile banking password, or your card verification code, CVC.
But it sounded so genuine.
Yes, hackers and fraudsters always sound genuine. But please, Uncle, don't fall for their bait. Don't respond to any phony emails, text message, SMS, and don't click on any link you're not sure of.
Even if they call your date of birth or your BVN, don't give them your security details.
If you suspect any issue with your account, please go to your bank.
Oh, I see.
This message is from the Central Bank of Nigeria.
That's the package from the CBN this week. Be careful not to fall for any fraudulent recruitment portal or loan scheme advertisements purportedly from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Get your information from trusted sources always. Report unresolved banking issues to the CBN Consumer Protection Department using the email cpd@cbn.gov.ng. Attach relevant documents. Call the CBN Contact Center on the phone line +234 700 2255 226. Local rates may apply. Write to us through the email address from the cbn@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X, formerly Twitter, for updates and to watch uploaded episodes of the program. We invite you to join us again next time. I'm William Isi Dada. Stay safe. Bye for now.